I had just sold my biomedical analytics company, Novagen Metrics, for $60 million. The ink on the acquisition contract was barely dry, and the official confirmation call came in while I stood in the marble lobby of Luminara, the most luxurious rooftop restaurant in Crescent City. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, a moment of closure, a quieter chapter of life finally beginning. To honor it, I invited my only child, my son Marcus, and his wife, Elise. They were radiant, glamorous, camera-ready, always living in a world that seemed too glossy to touch. The three of us sat at the best corner table overlooking the city skyline, a view I had always saved for special moments. I thought this was one of them. Before I returned to the table, I stared at my reflection in the polished elevator doors. My name is Jonathan Hale. I am 66 years old and 3 years widowed. That $60 million was not luck. It was the product of 4 decades of stubbornness and sleepless nights. It was built in an old warehouse on Bayline Street, with outdated computers and 5 employees who believed in me before I even believed in myself. It was built with my late wife Eleanor, who handled every storm with 100 small acts of love. She always saw the truth sooner than I did, especially when it came to Elise. Jonathan, be careful with her. She had warned me once in our kitchen late at night while washing the dishes. There is something in her eyes. She watches money the way some people watch sunsets. It frightened me how right she had been. I ignored those warnings then. Maybe I wanted so desperately to believe Marcus had chosen someone who loved him. Truly loved him, not the life he was climbing into. But people are not always what they pretend to be. After Eleanor passed, Marcus changed. He drifted. It was like he no longer knew who he was without her. Elise filled every empty space in him, and he let her. They lived in a penthouse downtown. They flew first class. They collected designer labels the way children collect seashells. Meanwhile, I stayed in the same sea-sided home Eleanor and I bought 35 years ago. Her rose garden was still blooming, wild and uneven, just the way she liked it. 6 months ago, whispers about Novagen's acquisition started spreading across business circles. My phone began ringing more. Invitations from Marcus and Elise arrived more often. Little gestures, little attempts at closeness I had never seen from them before. Dad.
Elise and I were thinking we should help you organize your estate documents. Dad, maybe we should all look over your portfolio together. Elise knows a lot about investments. Dad, you should not be handling negotiations alone at your age. Let us help. I had been lonely. I missed the warmth in the house, the noise, the simple presence of family. I mistook their interest for love. Tonight at Luminara, as the chandeliers above us glittered like galaxies, their affection felt too polished, too perfect. Elise leaned forward with a bright smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Jonathan, we are so proud of you. You built something from nothing. You should be celebrated. But nothing inside me relaxed. Their eyes were too attentive, too fixed on me. I felt like a man being studied, evaluated, weighed. Marcus raised his glass of rare Merlot.
To Dad, to the man who taught me ambition. I smiled, but inside I felt something shift. Something pulled tight and uneasy. Dad, let me ask you something, Marcus said suddenly, lowering his voice. With Novagen gone, what happens to all the lab networks, the refrigerated cargo routes? Those biotransport systems must be valuable. It was an odd question. The acquiring corporation will take full control, I answered slowly. Those assets are integrated into the deal. Why? Marcus shrugged in a way that was too casual to be natural. I do not know. Just curious. Then my phone vibrated. The bank call. The final confirmation. This was it. I excused myself politely and walked toward the lobby, the city lights shimmering beneath the glass walls.
The call took 1 minute. Mr. Hale, the transfer has been completed. Congratulations. 40 years of work.
Over. Just like that. I closed my eyes. Relief washed through me like warm water. I could finally rest, travel, breathe again. But when I turned toward the dining hall to return, a young waiter stepped forward, blocking my path. His uniform was crisp, but his hands trembled so violently he nearly dropped his order pad. "Sir," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Mr. Hale, please. You need to listen to me. It is about your wine and your family." In that moment, the celebration ended, and the nightmare began. The young waiter looked as if he had seen a ghost. His eyes darted over his shoulder toward the dining hall, as though someone might be watching him. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing in fear. "Sir, my name is Adrian. I am new here. I should not even be stopping you like this. I could be fired, but I had to tell you. I had to." His voice trembled. His fingers clutched the edge of his apron as if it were a lifeline. Something inside me went still. A strange cold settled at the base of my spine. "Tell me what?" I asked. Adrian inhaled sharply, bracing himself. "When you stood up to take your call, your son, he distracted your daughter-in-law. He turned his body so you could not see the table. While you were looking away, Elise," she reached into her purse. My heartbeat faltered. She took out a tiny vial, sir, a brown bottle. She emptied a white powder into your wine, all of it. Then she stirred the glass once with her spoon, very fast, like she had practiced. Everything inside me turned to ice. "Are you certain?" I whispered. Adrian nodded so quickly and so desperately it hurt to watch. "I saw everything, sir. I was standing behind the service station. Just 2 feet away. I was refilling water glasses. She did it while Marcus kept asking her about the painting on the wall, loud on purpose to make sure you were too far away to notice. I do not know what it was, but, sir, her face. She looked determined and scared, like she needed you to drink it. The lobby lights suddenly felt too bright. The marble beneath my shoes shifted as if I were standing on water. An ache bloomed in my chest, slow and sharp. My daughter-in-law, the woman my son insisted was kind, the woman my wife had warned me about. "You did the right thing telling me," I said softly. Adrian was trembling, not the kind of trembling that comes from cold, but the kind that comes from moral terror, from doing something right that might cost you everything. "Sir, I cannot lose this job. My mum is sick. I pay her treatments." But I could not just watch that and pretend I saw nothing. I just thought, if that were my father. His voice broke. In that moment I felt something inside me shift. A clarity. A steel wire pulling tight. I reached into my wallet and handed him several bills, folded small. Not a bribe, not a payoff. A thank you for courage in a world where courage is rare. "You do not speak of this to anyone," I said gently. "Not the staff, not my family. Finish your shift, go home, and if you ever need help, any help at all, call this number." I gave him my private card, the one that only a handful of people had ever seen. His eyes widened, shimmering with relief and fear. "Thank you, sir. And please be careful." He slipped away into the shadows of the lobby as quickly as he had appeared. For 10 long seconds I stood alone. 10 seconds that stretched into a lifetime. Everything felt hollow, fragile, too quiet. The world I knew had cracked. The people I loved were suddenly strangers. My mind spiraled through every conversation, every odd moment, every sudden, suspicious act of kindness over the last months. Dad, do not tire yourself. Dad, let us handle the paperwork. Dad, are you sure you remember all your appointments? Pieces of a puzzle I never realized I had been solving fell into place. Not poison. No. Elise was too intelligent, too calculating for something so crude. This was something else. Something that would mimic confusion. Something that would make me seem unstable. Something that would make a 66-year-old man appear unfit to control $60 million. They were not trying to kill me. They were trying to erase me. I smoothed my suit jacket and steadied my breath. I forced every muscle in my face into calm. This was not the moment to reveal I knew. This was not the moment to break. I walked back toward the dining hall. The clatter of silverware and the low hum of conversation washed over me. Candlelight flickered on white tablecloths. The restaurant looked the same, but I was not the same man who had left the table 10 minutes ago. As I approached, Marcus and Elise were laughing softly. Elise touched her wine glass with delicate fingers. She did not know that glass would never touch my lips. "Dad," Elise said sweetly as I sat down, "everything okay?" Her eyes were perfect crescents of concern. "Yes," I said with a practiced smile, "just business." But inside, my pulse was steady and cold. A war had been declared. They thought I would walk into their trap blind, but they did not know the truth. I had already opened my eyes. The air around our table felt heavier than before. Every flicker of candlelight cast strange shadows across Elise's face, softening her expression into something deceptively gentle. Marcus was mid-story, spinning some elaborate tale about a new real estate opportunity in Dubai, gesturing animatedly with his fork as if he were presenting a pitch deck. I nodded occasionally, my eyes drifting to the 2 wine glasses. Mine filled with deep crimson. Hers touched only once, still resting near the edge of her plate. The glass that should have been my downfall. I needed a distraction. Something natural. Something that looked like a simple accident, not a calculated counterstrike. The opportunity arrived by pure chance. A different waiter approached, a tall man with a neat beard and a polished posture. He carried a crystal pitcher filled with chilled water, condensation trickling down the glass like cold sweat. "Refill for the table, sir?" "Of course," I said, shifting slightly in my chair. As he leaned in to pour, I adjusted my napkin and intentionally nudged my elbow outward. It made contact with my own water glass. The spill was dramatic and immediate. The glass toppled, shattering the serene surface of the night. Water splashed across the tablecloth, spilling toward Marcus's lap. "Oh no!" I exclaimed, feigning embarrassment. "I am so sorry." Marcus shot to his feet with a hiss, jumping back as icy water soaked the front of his tailored slacks. "Dad! Seriously?" His voice was sharper than usual. Elise gasped softly, grabbing her napkin as if to assist, but not truly helping. The waiter apologized profusely, rushing to blot the spreading puddle. In the chaos, in the tangle of hands and fabric and frantic movement, I made the switch. Years in boardrooms and negotiations had taught me how to move with purpose while appearing distracted. My right hand lifted my glass. My left lifted Elise's. I moved both out of the path of the spill under the guise of helping the waiter save the table. When the glasses returned to the tablecloth, their places were reversed. Just like that, the fate she planned for me became her own. It took less than 4 seconds. Elise didn't notice. Marcus didn't notice. Their eyes were too busy flicking to each other, confirming that everything was still under control. Their plan was still moving. their script still in motion.
Once the waiter stepped away and Marcus resumed his seat, I lifted my new glass, her original glass, and held it gently by the stem. "Well," I said softly, "since I have already made a mess of the table, we should at least attempt a toast." Elise smiled that practiced smile again. "Absolutely. To new beginnings. To family," Marcus added. "To getting everything you deserve," Elise chimed with a playful wink. If she only knew how fitting those words were. She raised her glass, took a confident sip, and placed it back down with a satisfied sigh. I put my own glass to my lips, but let only the faintest touch of wine pass, just enough to look believable. After that, time began to stretch. Marcus dove into another monologue, this time about a potential business partnership with a crypto investor. He spoke with conviction, gesturing enthusiastically as though he had already secured the deal. Elise laughed at all the right moments, occasionally brushing her hand along his arm to keep him centered. I watched her. 5 minutes passed. She blinked several times, slower than usual. 7 minutes. Her fingers curled against the tablecloth as though she were trying to feel its texture. 9 minutes. She shifted in her seat, her posture loosening, her shoulders lowering involuntarily. A faint crease formed between her brows. "Jonathan," she said quietly, almost a whisper. "The lights. Are they flickering?" Marcus barely looked at her. "It is a rooftop restaurant, Elise. There are hundreds of lights." She swallowed hard. "No, I mean, they feel too bright, too sharp." Her voice was unsteady now. Her pupils, normally a warm honey color, had shrunk to tiny pinpoints. My heart thudded slowly. 12 minutes. Marcus stopped talking mid-sentence when Elise's hand jerked unexpectedly. Her fork clattered loudly against the plate. Her jaw tightened. She blinked again, rapidly, then sluggishly. "Honey, are you okay?" She opened her mouth, but the words slurred together. "I feel strange." Her fingers trembled. Then her whole arm. She pushed back her chair abruptly, trying to stand, but her legs buckled. The room tilted for her, her knees giving way. "Jonathan, something is wrong." And then her eyes rolled back. She collapsed sideways into her chair before sliding to the floor, her body convulsing in small, violent surges. A soft gasp escaped from the tables nearby. Conversations froze. Cutlery stilled. Someone screamed. Marcus stared, paralyzed, his face drained of color. Elise lay shaking uncontrollably, a tremor rolling through her limbs like a passing storm. I stood swiftly, letting my voice break with the perfect tone of frantic confusion. "Call an ambulance! Somebody help her, please!" The restaurant erupted into panic, but inside, beneath the shaky exterior, one truth rang steady and cold. The trap had been reversed, and this was only the beginning. The sirens reached the restaurant before the paramedics did. Their distant wail cut through the night like a blade, growing louder, sharper, more urgent with each passing second. Elise lay on the polished marble floor of Luminara, her body jerking in short, uneven spasms. Her lips were starting to turn pale, her breath shallow and erratic. People stood frozen around us, their designer shoes planted like roots, eyes wide with horrified fascination. Marcus was kneeling beside her, but he was not touching her. He was not holding her, not checking her pulse, not whispering comfort. He just stared, hands hovering uselessly in the air. His face had drained of all color, leaving him ghost pale under the golden chandelier light. "Elise, Elise, get up. Please get up." But his voice cracked, trembling in a way that was not grief, not fear of losing her. It was fear of losing control. I knelt on the other side of her, grabbing her hand. It was cold,
far too cold for a woman who had collapsed only moments ago. That coldness travelled through me like a prophecy.
"Someone help her!"
I shouted with enough panic to fill the room.
"Please, she is not breathing right."
A manager sprinted across the floor, ushering people aside. The double doors burst open, and 2 paramedics rushed in pushing a collapsible gurney. Their efficiency was swift and frighteningly precise. "What did she take?" the lead paramedic demanded, shining a penlight into Elise's unresponsive eyes. "Nothing," Marcus stammered. "She must have had... maybe she mixed her anxiety meds, or wine, or something. She does that sometimes." He spoke too fast, too rehearsed. His hands were shaking violently, and his gaze kept darting toward me as if begging me to support his lie. "What medication?" the paramedic asked sharply. Marcus froze. "I do not know the name." "She keeps it in her purse," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. That moment said everything. No real husband would forget the name of his wife's medication. But a man who was trying to avoid naming the wrong drug, he would freeze exactly like that. The paramedics lifted Elise onto the gurney. Her head rolled slightly, her eyelids fluttering but unfocused. They strapped her in and adjusted the oxygen mask. "We are losing time. Secure the airway. Prep for transport." They pushed the gurney toward the exit. I followed, playing the part of a frantic father. Marcus trailed behind, still in shock. Out on the curb, red and blue lights painted the night as the ambulance doors swung open. Before they closed, I stepped forward, putting my hand on the metal edge. "Please, save my daughter-in-law," I whispered, letting my voice tremble. "She is all my son has left." The paramedic nodded, misunderstanding entirely. "We will do our best." Then the doors slammed shut, sealing Elise inside. As the ambulance roared away, Marcus grabbed my arm. "You did this," he hissed. His eyes were wide.
"Pupils blown with panic. You upset her. You stressed her out. If anything happens, if she..."
His voice broke and he looked away. He had not realized yet that the plan had already collapsed the moment Elise lifted the wrong glass. I let my face twist into hurting confusion. "Marcus, I am as shocked as you are. I do not know what is happening. She just fell. We need to be at the hospital. Now!" He hesitated only a second before nodding and hailing a cab. The ride to St. Ridgeview Medical Center was silent. Marcus stared out the window, rubbing his hands together in quick, frantic motions. His breathing was uneven, and sweat gathered at the back of his neck. He was unraveling, thread by thread. When we arrived, the emergency room doors slid open with a whisper, releasing a gust of sterile, cold air. Fluorescent lights glared overhead as nurses hurried patients down the hall. Elise had already been wheeled into Trauma Room 5. Marcus tried to follow, but a nurse blocked him. "Sir, you cannot enter yet. We are stabilizing her." I stepped back, leaning heavily against a wall. My breathing deepened. My shoulders slumped. I let myself look every bit the exhausted, confused old man they wanted me to be. It worked. Marcus approached cautiously, his paranoia thickening the air. "Dad, you look pale. You need to sit down. Do not pass out on me, okay?" I waved him away weakly. "I am fine, son. It is just all of this. I am overwhelmed." He exhaled shakily and ran a hand through his hair. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the last hour, but beneath that veneer of distress, something else was brewing. A calculation. A frantic recalibration of a plan gone wrong. A curtain pulled back, and a doctor entered the waiting area. His scrubs were crisp, his expression was stern. "Family of Elise Hale Ford?" We both stepped forward. "I am Dr. Romero, the ER attending. We ran a toxicology panel because her symptoms were highly concerning. The results were just confirmed."
Marcus stiffened. "What is wrong with her?" he asked, too quickly. Dr. Romero's eyes darkened. "Your wife has an extremely high dose of clozapine in her system. That is not an anxiety medication. That is an antipsychotic used only for severe psychiatric disorders." Marcus swallowed hard, his face contorting. What? I have never heard of that. She must have taken the wrong bottle." Dr. Romero shook his head slowly. "No. A dosage this high is not accidental.
Someone administered it intentionally. And given the concentration..." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "This could have killed her." A chill rippled through the room. Marcus stood frozen, staring at the floor, jaw clenched. I simply whispered, "Oh dear God, who would do such a thing?" But I already knew the answer, and soon, so would everyone else. Dr. Romero walked away, leaving Marcus and me standing in a sterile hallway drowned in fluorescent light. Nurses pushed carts of supplies past us. A man in a wheelchair coughed softly near the vending machine. The constant hum of monitors created a sharp backdrop to the tension coiling between us. Marcus finally spoke, his voice unsteady. "Dad, you do not believe I would ever..." I let my shoulders sag, my hands trembling just enough to seem uncontrolled. "Marcus," I whispered, my voice fragile, "I just do not understand. None of this makes sense. Why would Elise have that drug on her?" He swallowed hard. He looked away. His jaw tightened and relaxed in a jerky rhythm. "I think maybe she was under a lot of pressure." "Maybe more than I realized," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Maybe she hid things from me. Maybe she was overwhelmed." It was a lie, a terrible one, but he needed it to stay afloat. I looked at him with watery eyes, not accusing, just lost, confused. Let him think his story was working. He exhaled with shaky relief and straightened his tie, trying to reclaim the mask he wore so well. "Look, Dad, I should call someone. Elise's doctor. He will know more. He will help us handle this." He stepped aside, pulling out his phone. He turned his back to me. Pacing toward the vending machines, his voice lowered. His fingers clenched the phone so tightly they turned white. "Read," he hissed. "It is Marcus. The plan is falling apart." She drank it herself. I do not know how, but she did. I stepped behind the corner wall, letting the shadows hide me. Every syllable came through with perfect clarity. "No. Listen to me," Marcus said, panic seeping through his words. "The hearing is at 8. You were supposed to see my dad this morning, remember? You cannot back out. They need your testimony. We need the diagnosis. An 8 a.m. hearing." So that was the end game. Reed must have protested because Marcus's voice hardened. "I do not care. My father looks confused enough already. Just say you saw him. Just say what we rehearsed. If this goes wrong, we both lose everything." He paused, listening. His breathing quickened. "No, no excuses. If you do not show up, I swear I will." He stopped himself, lowering his voice. "Just get here, now." He hung up abruptly. His shoulders sagged for a moment, and then he turned, wearing a mask of concern as he walked back toward me. "Dad, are you all right?" I raised my hand to my forehead, letting it tremble. "I need air," I whispered. "I cannot breathe." Marcus placed a hand on my back and guided me outside toward the sliding doors. Perfect. Let him think I was unraveling. Outside, cold night air rushed against my skin. I leaned against a concrete pillar, breathing heavily, playing the part he needed me to play. Marcus knelt to catch my eye, pretending to be the dutiful son, the caring child. "I just want to help you, Dad. You know that, right?" I nodded weakly, though every muscle inside me wanted to recoil. When I stood again, I gently touched his arm. "Marcus, I think I need to go home. This is too much. I need to rest. If Elise wakes up, call me, please." His eyes flickered with relief and triumph, the sick kind of triumph that chills a man to his marrow. "Of course. Go rest. I will take care of everything with Dr. Reed. You just try to relax. Try to stay calm. Relax. Stay calm. Let the wolves circle." I let him help me into a cab. I waved goodbye through the window with a trembling hand. He watched until the car turned the corner, convinced that I was spiraling downward, losing grip. He had no idea I had never been clearer. The moment the cab rolled onto the main road, I gave the driver a new address. The penthouse at Harborview Heights, Marcus and Elise's home. He nodded and kept driving. When we arrived, the building's lobby was nearly empty. A tired security guard looked up lazily from behind the desk. He recognized me immediately. "Evening, Mr. Hale. They expecting you?" "Yes," I said with a weary smile. "Just checking on the place for them." He buzzed me up without another word. On the 42nd floor, the hallway was quiet, muted by thick carpet and expensive silence. I walked to their unit, reached under a pot of decorative succulents, and found the spare key exactly where Marcus always hid it. The door clicked open. The penthouse was dark, lit only by the moonlight bleeding through the massive windows. The city below shimmered like a field of diamonds. I walked past the expensive furniture, the neatly arranged wine shelves, the curated art on the walls, and went straight to the Home Office. I knew exactly where to look. Elise's laptop was on the desk. Unlocked. Arrogance makes people sloppy. I opened her email, typed one word into the search bar. Read. The entire screen filled instantly. Dozens of emails. A thread titled Contingency Plan Hale. Documents, instructions, schedules. A PDF stamped with the words Emergency Conservatorship. My name, my estate, my future. All outlined in pitch-perfect detail. My pulse remained calm as I opened the attachment. Marcus and Elise had planned everything. The drug, the diagnosis, the hearing, the doctor's false testimony. By 9 a.m., they had expected me to be declared mentally incompetent with full control of my $60 million transferred to them. I leaned back in the leather chair. The skyline glittered behind me like a curtain of stars. Not tomorrow morning, not ever. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was time to call the only man who could help me dismantle their entire empire of lies. The city outside the penthouse window glowed with 1,000 moving lights. Cars traced thin silver lines across the streets below, and distant horns echoed like muted warnings. I stared at the screen in front of me, at my own name stamped across a document designed to steal my life. Emergency Conservatorship Petition. Petitioner, Marcus Hale. Respondent, Jonathan Hale. Reading. Those words felt like swallowing ice. My hands, however, were steady. My breath calm. Rage did not consume me. Clarity did. A clarity so sharp it felt almost surgical. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a contact I had not used in years. Ethan Ward. Ward was not a family attorney. He did not handle wills or divorces or petty disputes. He was a litigator with a reputation sharpened like a blade. He had saved my company from collapse twice, spearheaded the protection of my patents, and torn apart more than one hostile takeover attempt. He was feared in the corporate legal world for a reason. I hit call. It rang once. "This had better be catastrophic, Jonathan," he answered, his voice thick with sleep and irritation. "It is," I said quietly, "and I need you at your office. Now, not in the morning, in the next hour." There was silence, then the unmistakable shift in tone. "I am on my way." He hung up. I closed Elise's laptop. I left everything exactly as I found it. I stepped back into the hallway and locked their door behind me. As the elevator descended, My reflection stared back from the polished steel walls. I no longer saw a grieving widower or a tired old man. I saw the man I used to be, the man who built Novagen from scraps and faith. The man my son should have remembered. By the time I reached Ward's downtown building, it was close to 5 in the morning. The city was wrapped in cold, pre-dawn haze. His office windows glowed like a single beacon on the 32nd floor. A security guard buzzed me up without question. Ward was already waiting, hair slicked back, suit immaculate despite the early hour, a steaming mug of coffee in hand. His tie was slightly crooked, the only sign he had dressed in a hurry. "Jonathan," he said, motioning me in. "You look like hell. Tell me everything." I didn't speak like a man recounting trauma. I spoke like a CEO giving a briefing. I told him about the dinner, about Adrian, the terrified waiter, about Elise's collapse, about the toxicology report, about Marcus whispering to Dr. Reed in the hospital hallway, about the 8 a.m. hearing. Then I handed him the printed copy of the conservatorship petition I had emailed to myself. Ward read silently, his brow furrowing deeper with every page. When he reached the end, he let out a slow breath. "This is not just betrayal," he said. "This is criminal engineering. This is conspiracy, fraud, attempted incapacitation, possibly even attempted murder, depending on the dosage. And that is before we factor in the money." I leaned forward. "There is more." I told him about Marcus's strange obsession with Novagen's refrigerated cargo channels, about the questions he kept asking, about the shipping manifests and regulatory loopholes Marcus was too uneducated to understand unless someone had coached him. Ward's eyes narrowed. "He was using your company. Using your clean logistics chain. Piggybacking illegal shipments on FDA-cleared cargo routes. Jonathan, that is federal. That is serious." I nodded once. "And now that the company has been sold, the acquiring corporation will audit every asset, every route, every manifest. It will expose everything he has been doing." Ward stood and walked to the window, staring out at the glowing city. "So the 60 million was not the prize," he said. "It was the obstacle." He turned back to me, face sharp with realization. "He needed you legally incompetent before the audit began. He needed control over your account so he could run. He was trying to disappear before the FBI arrived at his door." I said nothing. I didn't need to. Ward returned to the desk and placed both hands flat on the polished surface. "Here is what we are going to do. First, we attend that hearing. Early. Let them think you are confused and lost. Let them believe their story is working. Lies only collapse under their own weight when you let them finish building the tower." I listened silently. "Second, we destroy their star witness. Dr. Reed is the weak link. He is dirty. Men like him always leave a trail. I am assigning a private investigator to dig up everything. Financial records, offshore accounts, debts. If he has skeletons, we will parade them in open court." He grabbed his phone and fired off a message. "Third, we notify the federal office. I suspect the illegal shipping goes beyond this one incident. If we time this right, they will be at the courthouse before the hearing concludes. Marcus thinks he is gaming the system. He is not ready for the system to game him back." Ward picked up his briefcase and snapped it shut. "Last, you play your role. You act confused. You act tired. You act fragile. Let them incriminate themselves. Let their arrogance expose them." He paused, measuring me. "Jonathan," he said slowly, "this is going to get ugly. Unforgivably ugly. Are you prepared?" I met his stare without blinking. "My son tried to erase me from my own life." I said, "I have never been more prepared." Ward nodded once. "Then let us end this." The county courthouse rose like a grey monolith against the pale morning sky. The sun had barely crawled over the horizon. yet the building radiated the kind of cold authority that made even innocent people nervous. I stood beside Ward at the end of the hallway outside courtroom 3B. The fluorescent lights buzzed. The air tasted of burnt coffee and old paper. Ward checked his watch. It was 7:44 a.m. "Right on time," he murmured. Through the narrow window in the courtroom door, I could see them. My son, Marcus, his attorney, and Dr. Reed, sitting stiffly on the front bench like a man waiting for execution. Marcus looked disheveled. His tailored suit was pressed, but his face was a wreck. Dark circles under his eyes, jaw clenched. He kept pacing back and forth, running a hand through his hair. Each step radiated the frantic energy of someone whose master plan was slipping through his fingers. His lawyer stood beside him, trying to whisper reassurance, but Marcus barely listened. He kept glancing at the door, certain I would not walk through it. In his mind, I was wandering somewhere confused and unstable, a missing old man who could not tie his own shoes. He truly believed his plan was flawless. And that belief was about to bury him. Ward rested a hand on my shoulder. "Not yet. Let them lie first. Let them drown themselves." Inside, the bailiff called for order. "All rise for the Honourable Judge Patterson." We could hear the scrape of chairs as everyone stood. Judge Patterson opened the file on her bench, adjusting her glasses. Her voice carried through the heavy wooden door. "We are here to address the emergency petition submitted by Mr. Marcus Hale, seeking immediate conservatorship over his father, Mr. Jonathan Hale." Marcus stepped forward. I could not see his expression, but I could imagine it. Desperate, determined, delusional. His attorney began. "Your Honour, we come before the court with a heavy heart. My client has been struggling to care for his father, whose mental decline has accelerated dangerously. Last night, Mr. Hale suffered a severe psychotic episode. He attacked his daughter-in-law. He created a public disturbance at a restaurant. And afterward, he fled the scene." Ward smirked beside me. "Creative," he whispered. The lawyer continued, voice rich with false sympathy. "We attempted a wellness check this morning. Mr. Hale was nowhere to be found. We fear he is missing and endangered. In his state, he cannot be trusted with his finances, especially after receiving an extremely large cash settlement from the sale of his company. We ask for immediate conservatorship to protect him from himself." Judge Patterson tapped her pen. "Missing," she repeated, "and confused." "Yes, Your Honour. Sadly, yes." I could almost feel Marcus exhale with relief. Ward gave me a nod. Showtime. He pushed the courtroom door open with a controlled, deliberate movement. The sound echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. Every head turned. The lawyer's voice cut off mid-sentence. Marcus froze. His face went slack, then drained of all colour. He looked like a man watching his own funeral. I walked in beside Ward, wearing my best tailored charcoal suit, my posture straight, my eyes sharp, my steps calm and steady. There was no confusion in me, no frailty, no scene of a man losing himself, only authority, only truth. Judge Patterson blinked. "Mr. Hale," she said slowly, "you appear to be very much present." Ward stepped forward. "Apologies for the delay, Your Honour. It seems there was some confusion about my client's whereabouts. He has been with me since early morning preparing for this hearing." Marcus's lawyer sputtered. But he was missing. He was unstable. Dr. Reed saw him at his home this morning." Ward raised an eyebrow. "Really? Dr. Reed saw him. The judge turned to Reed. "Is this true?" Dr. Reed looked like he was about to combust. His hands trembled. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He shook his head, voice cracking. I must have mistaken the time, Your Honor." Ward smiled with the quiet satisfaction of a man tightening a noose. "Your Honor, the defense moves to present evidence suggesting not only that Dr. Reed did not see my client this morning, but that he has been financially compromised and medically coerced by the petitioner. We have documents showing payments totaling $300,000 from a shell corporation belonging to Mr. Marcus Hale." Gasps filled the courtroom. Marcus's lawyer tried to interject, but Ward continued with a controlled ferocity. "Furthermore, Your Honor, we have reason to believe the petitioner attempted to have my client drugged at a public restaurant last night using a sedative known to mimic acute cognitive decline. The wrong person drank the substance, resulting in a medical emergency. Toxicology reports confirm this." The courtroom erupted. Marcus shot to his feet. "This is a lie. He is setting me up. That old man is manipulating everyone. Arrest him! Arrest him now!" He lunged toward me. And that was when two men in suits at the back of the courtroom stood up. Not bailiffs, federal agents. They stepped forward with calm authority. "Marcus Hale," one of them announced. "You are under federal investigation for conspiracy, medical fraud, and interstate smuggling. Please place your hands where we can see them." Marcus backed away, shaking his head, panic flooding his voice. "No, no, this is not happening." But it was. The agents seized his arms as he fought like a trapped animal. Reed collapsed into his seat, whimpering. The courtroom descended into chaos. Judge Patterson slammed her gavel. "Order! Order!" I did not move. I simply watched as the consequences of their choices finally arrived. Ward leaned toward me. "This, Jonathan," he said softly, "is what justice looks like." The courtroom emptied slowly, leaving behind a hollow quiet that felt almost sacred. Papers still lay scattered across the tables, chairs stood askew from the struggle, and the faint buzz of the overhead lights hummed like distant static. I remained seated, my hands folded, my breathing steady. It was over. The storm that had nearly swallowed my life had finally passed. Ward packed his briefcase with clinical precision. He paused, looking at me. "You did well today, Jonathan." I nodded, though my chest felt heavy, not triumphant. Winning against strangers was easy. Winning against your own blood was something else entirely. Painful. It left wounds that no court ruling could stitch closed. Outside, reporters swarmed the courthouse steps, microphones raised, flashes popping. Ward stepped ahead, shielding me as agents cleared a path. I slipped into the back seat of a black sedan and shut the door on the chaos behind me. For the first time in 24 hours, I exhaled. "Take me to St. Mary's Hospital," I said quietly. The driver nodded. The city passed in a blur of traffic lights and morning fog. People hurried along sidewalks, unaware of the battles others fought quietly beside them. Life had a cruel way of continuing, indifferent to broken hearts. 30 minutes later, I stood outside Elise's hospital room. A police officer stationed outside recognized me. "You can go in, sir." I pushed the door open. Elise sat propped up in bed, her hair tangled, her eyes swollen from tears. Her face was pale beneath the fluorescent lights. The TV on the wall silently replayed news footage of Marcus being hauled out of the courthouse in handcuffs. She did not see me at first. She was staring at that screen, one hand pressed to her mouth. When she did finally notice me, she startled. "Dad!" Her voice cracked like fragile glass. I stepped inside. She wiped her eyes quickly, as if trying to erase the evidence of her fear. Even now, she wanted to present herself as composed, strong, loyal to the man who had led her into ruin. I stood at the foot of her bed. "How are you feeling?" She swallowed, unable to answer. Her eyes drifted to the TV again. "Marcus, he is arrested. They said smuggling, they said fraud, they said federal charges. Dad, what is happening?" Her voice shook with terror, but there was something else beneath it. Guilt. I walked to the window and drew the curtain, letting sunlight spill into the room. "Elise," I said gently, "you know exactly what happened." She froze, her breath hitched. "Dad, I did not want to hurt you. I swear. He told me you were confused. He told me you were forgetting things. He said the money would disappear if you were not protected. He said it was the only way." He said. A lifetime of excuses wrapped in fear. I looked at her, really looked at her. This was not the daughter I had raised, not the girl who once cried over stray animals, not the young woman who used to bake cookies for neighborhood kids. That girl had been eroded piece by piece by a man who saw her as leverage. I stepped closer. "Elise, you were not blind. You chose this. You chose him." Her face collapsed into her hands, her shoulders shook, tears fell freely. "I messed up. I messed up so badly. I believed him. I believed every lie. I thought I was protecting you. I thought he loved me. I thought we were building a future." She looked up at me with raw desperation. "Am I going to prison?" The question hung in the air like a blade. "No," I said. Her breath caught in relief. "You are not going to prison, Elise. But you are not escaping the consequences." She blinked, confused. I pulled up a chair and sat beside her. "I am going to pay for your legal team, therapy and treatment. You will receive help. You will rebuild yourself, but you will not receive a cent from my estate. Not now, not for a long time." She stared at me. "But Dad, how will I live? How will I survive? What am I supposed to do?" "You will work," I said softly. "For the first time in your life, you will earn your own living. You will start at the Redwood Community Shelter. Night shift, cleaning, organizing, helping people who have nothing." Her lips trembled. That is a janitorial job." "Correct." I watched the shock travel through her. "You will learn humility, Elise, responsibility, purpose, and one day, if you become the woman your mother hoped you would be, we will revisit your future." Her face crumpled. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I am so sorry, Dad." I reached out and gently took her hand. It was small and cold in mine. "Being sorry is not enough," I said. "Being better is." She nodded through tears. 6 months later, the world felt different. I sat in my modest home, sunlight warming the living room. The air smelled faintly of pine from the open window. I held a cup of coffee as a young man in a crisp suit approached my table. "Evan," he smiled as he set down his laptop. "Morning, Mr. Hale. Finance reports are ready." "Oh, and the shelter sent an update on Elise." I nodded, bracing myself. "She completed her probationary work month. They said she is slow but dedicated. She has been volunteering extra hours. They said she is becoming dependable." I closed my eyes for a moment. "Good," I whispered. "That is good." Evan hesitated. "You did the right thing, sir." I looked at him, at the young man who had saved my life with a whisper in a crowded restaurant. "No, Evan," I said. "I did the necessary thing." Because sometimes love demands consequences, not comfort. Sometimes justice is not vengeance, but clarity. And sometimes the only way to teach someone the value of a life is to let them rebuild it from the ground up. He nodded solemnly. Shall we review the quarterly projections? Yes, I said, taking a breath. Let us. The storm was over, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peace.